Me personally, I hope that people walk away understanding that despite adversity and circumstance, that you really can't run away from who you are.
And welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Darnelle Radford, and today I am back in the virtual studio. But we are done with the 2025 Philly Fringe Festival, which was great. Covered a lot of shows. You can go back and listen to those. But now we're in kind of the thick of the beginning of the Philadelphia theater season, 2025-26. And I have ventured over to Quintessence Theater Group and brought an actor back to the virtual studio to talk about the upcoming production of Fire by Wallace Thurman. And I'm here to chat with Kaisheem Fowler-Bryant. Kaisheem, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Darnell. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it is a pleasure to have you in the studio today. And so you are new to us. So tell us about Kaisheem.
Yes, I am new to Philadelphia. Kaisheem Fowler-Bryant is South Bronx, New York, born and raised. I've done most of my education in New York outside of undergrad. If anybody is familiar with the school named Howard University, then I went to go study there. HU, you know. And that was fun and cute and then suddenly I became a degree wielding citizen, and officially forayed into this beautiful profession. Before Philly, I used to split my time between auditioning in New York and DC. And being that I'm from New York, I have the luxury of being able to stay home. So I take advantage of that.
Taking some notes here. So you're currently in New York? No, you're here.
Right now we're here in Philadelphia. I got introduced to this project, Fire, devoted to younger Negro artists, by the director. I met the director in New York because I had a friend who is an actor playwright, and one day I kind of was just like, I want to do more plays because my background's mostly in musicals. I studied musical theater. I got into musicals via classical voice, my first love, music and singing. And I was really looking into getting into more stage plays because a lot of my friends in New York who are also actors who I grew up with, they don't really sing, they don't really dance. And I wanted to start to create ways to work with my friends. So one of my friends literally put me in a short where I met the director. She liked my work in the short and was like, "Hey, I have a job for you. This is the job." And I started reading the script and I was like, "Oh wait, the play about me? Oh, that's crazy." So yeah, after a workshop, now we're here on day one of tech. I finished day one a couple of hours ago, and a little tired but grateful.
Well, it's a great story. Let's see. What were your first impressions of this piece? And well, first, what did you know about Fire walking into this? And then what were your first impressions of the piece?
I knew absolutely nothing about Fire. I never heard of Fire before. I picked up a copy of I got a PDF of the magazine once the project was introduced to me, and I was only familiar with two of the bunch of writers in the magazine because those were just writers that I got to study in school, more popularly Zora Neale Hurston and Langston Hughes. Those are names I were familiar with. Gwendolyn Bennett, Teresa Nugent, Arthur Fawcett, Aaron Douglas, Auntie Cullen. Those were new names. Wallace Thurman. Those were all new names for me. But when I read the adaptation, I read the magazine first, cover to cover. Magazine made no sense to me. I was like, okay, I'm reading this beautiful, intricate work. And it would have taken me a couple of more reads to just to scratch the surface of what that meant. But once I read the adaptation, not only did it help me make sense of the magazine, but I was like, ooh, this is bold. This is daring. I can comfortably share that it's kind of like a play in a play, but I can't give too much away on like the why of it, and like just that construct is kind of really fascinating for me. It's much more
Mhm.
complex than that, but like we're fundraising for the second issue of this magazine. This magazine only had one issue. So the second issue never came to be. And the way we fundraise for volume two is by presenting excerpts of the essays from volume one. So already we have not only like the adaptation that was written by Paul Okwustovo and Marilyn Campbell Lowe, but we're literally theatricalizing a lot of these essays, some of which are plays, like Zora has a play in there, but some of which are great prose that we then turn into a story and theatricalize and breathe life into it. And that has been beautiful and challenging, but also beautiful.
Yeah. So tell us, you're playing Wallace Thurman.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about Wallace.
Wallace is a strange kind of fellow. It's literally a line in the play. When I started doing research on Wallace, I learned that he died young. I learned that part of the reason why he died young was specifically tuberculosis. Tuberculosis got him at 32. He actually died in New York Presbyterian, which, no, not New York Presbyterian. I think it was Bellevue. He died in a New York hospital. Debt had been a recurring issue for him in his life. Wallace is really a fighter in a way. He did not grow up with a father in his home. I did not grow up with a father in his home. He also grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah, and spent some time back and forth from coast to coast while he was dealing with sickness as a young child, which really forced him to be homeschooled in a way. But ultimately, Wallace really wants to write. He always had this inclination to be expressive. And before he actually went to University of Utah and University of Southern California to study journalism, he was actually a pre-med student, which after looking in to try to dissect why that was, I think part of the pre-med was him being in and out of hospitals and just trying to make sense of like being ill and what that could be like. But he wanted to write so bad, he ended up moving all the way to Harlem across the entire country and really started delving into writing. And it took him a while to like get out of journalist into writer, but he eventually did and found some success with that with some novels and what am I forgetting? I believe it was a Broadway play that did some tours. I want to say it's called Harlem. Don't quote me on that. All before his very, very young death. If I had to wrap this up, Wallace is a fighter and Wallace is a man about his money. And as a New Yorker, I know exactly what it's like to be a man about his money.
Yeah, I spent about 2 years working in New York City, and the thing I noticed definitely is that everyone was freelance.
I mean, Lin-Manuel Miranda said it best, the greatest city in the world. It just comes with a very great price tag. But we don't get to name the city that never sleeps for nothing. And I think Wallace definitely had a handful or two of sleepless nights. Not all of them, but he was definitely, there was a fire in him that really drove him to find himself and drove him in ways that he was avoiding aspects of him, which we then dig into in the play that we're working on.
Tell me about the first day of rehearsal and meeting the cast. Well,
So
did you have
first
a
day,
workshop before?
I did the workshop with them in June, and then we started rehearsing for production in September. So I'll talk about production first, and then I'll talk about workshop. First day of production was kind of giddy. There were some people returning from the workshop, and there were some people new to the show. I knew the director. I was familiar with the choreographer. We actually had one of the adapters in the room with us for the first week, which is kind of unusual for world premieres. Typically, they're not always present. So, as we were getting into first read and just introductions, a lot of our day really centered our first experiences in theater because ultimately, in 1926, Zora Neale Hurston was not Zora Neale Hurston. Langston Hughes was not Langston Hughes. Like, they weren't these giants that we knew them today. They were they were young Black artists who knew they were good, but had not had their claim to fame. So before we even dug into the text on day one, a lot of what we shared was our first experiences in theater, because essentially they're doing this for the first time, and the director really wanted us to hold on to that as we started to build this really interdisciplinary piece. And then first day of workshop, going back to June, it wasn't as centered as like the newness of it. More so like workshops tend to really dig into how does the text sound on human bodies outside of the playwright's mind. And for this particular production, being that it's like very dramaturgy heavy, we take essays and we're inserting them into the play. A lot of it for us on that first day was, okay, now that we've read it out loud, what are our questions? How do we pick it apart? How do we dissect it so that it makes sense to us? So that should it go into production, it's a more solid, tighter book. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. But both days it really felt new. I was just really excited to be there, and both days were really, really fun, especially production first day. Getting the script and the binders. I'm very big on like stationery and like just things like that. So I like to hold things tangibly. Whereas in workshop, we hadn't like fleshed it out that much. So it was literally just, okay, do you have the pages on your iPad? Okay, cool. You have your pages printed. All right, cool. Let's read.
So how did it feel? How did it feel when you read Wallace at the beginning? And how does it feel now?
The beauty about new work and bringing something new to life is you kind of go through this period where the more you excavate it, the more you question how much you actually do know. Because you accumulate all this information about a person. Like right now, I'm playing a real life person in an age where we have things like MJ and Tina, where the standard has been set. So if you're playing a real person, you must give me an immaculate impression of them. And the beauty of this is, even in workshop, I felt like I started trying to impersonate this man and try to find ways to like make the language make sense for me. And now I'm in a place where I'm like, okay, that's cool, but we've already seen what an impersonation of like, we've already seen a show where they take real people and impersonate them. How can I humanize myself through this man's vessel? How do I allow people who literally look like me and come from places that I come from still be able to see themselves in a man who is very eloquent and very articulate and very wordsmithy and very witty with words, especially as someone who is wordsmithy and witty, but not in the way that Wallace is, if that makes sense. So right now I'm in that part where I'm just trying to uncover the layers to make it even more human, so that by the time we start getting bodies in the space, which is next week, actually, we get bodies in the space next week. Once we start getting bodies in the space, it's more about, okay, how do we just clarify the story in the context of, and like just aid the understanding of what people are seeing, so they're impulsed to pick up the magazine that we will literally be selling. Yes, one of the adapters, she found a way to, it's not the original publication, but like it's like another similar type. She gifted us our own copies of Fire, devoted to younger Negro artists, as like her parting gift after week one, which feels like eons ago. But she gifted us our copies, and we then discovered that the theater will actually be selling magazines. So I will actually be selling magazines to the people who come see the show.
Wow.
So like literally, please, like watch this beautiful play and now pick up a copy of the magazine.
Yeah, take that home with you.
With that.
Process more.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Well, that's great. Yeah, because I did a search and I found a PDF, but I haven't read through it all yet. I'm looking forward to doing that. What have you learned during this process so far that you think will stick with you?
Okay. I think personally, the thing that I have been learning and continue to learn is that the first answer will never be the final answer. Like coming from music, the pages are laid out for you, the notes and the rhythms are there. But especially when breathing life into something new and non-existent. A lot of rehearsal was me pushing myself to find new ways to literally play the scene, like figuring out like what are all of the options on how this could go and being comfortable with not rushing to lock into an answer. Like typically we had our design run on Sunday. Actors know typically by design run, you know what you're doing, you know where you're going, you know how you plan on getting there. And now tech is literally just about building stamina. How do we get our reps in? How do we make it easy for us so that by the time the bodies come into the space, we're not as thrown or we invite them as like the last character in the play. But in this process, I've really been being okay with not always having the answer because then in the not knowing, you're then pushed to really discover and figure out in the moment the why and the how, which is very unusual for like commercial musicals. Like my last project, which I shall not name, but my last project was a very commercial musical. This was the box. I'm an actor. I go into the box and I'm dictated on how I'm allowed to play in the box. This process was the exact opposite. Director was like, all right, here's the text. Let me see what you do with it. Ooh, I like that. Let's start making this box together. And then ultimately understanding that like the director is a leader of the ship. They're in charge of crafting the story. My job is simply just to chart out the options and hopefully we find something we agree on that's like, yeah, I like this, you like this, it is a story. We lit. Let's keep going.
Yeah. That's great. That's always a great way to process through because you're coming to terms with how this text is making you feel. And that has to be part of the performance because of how you feel in it in order for it to be authentic. I think that's great. You know, when we give time to just, you know, play with it. Let's see what it makes you feel, what it makes you think. And then we'll go from there.
Yeah. And now that you keep talking about feeling, it makes me like just look back at like when I look back, like I just left work. But just thinking about Wallace's journey, the director was she really stressed Black director, Rael Miracadus, amazing woman. She's really stressing the joy in the play because Wallace's journey, I believe, is a rather sad one, constantly fighting adversity, like just the trajectory of his life. Like it's a bit hard. And what's been beautiful about work is I still have the room to like find all the love between me and the other writers, the other editors, my fellow editors, while I still seek out the very things that I need and ensure that this magazine can sell so that so that I can keep my baby Fire alive. Again, volume 2, I need to chart out volume 3, 4, and 5. Back in 1926, it was very expensive to be Black. The idea of having to have rent parties because your rent was just higher because you was Black.
Yeah.
Mind-boggling. So, yeah, while Wallace's journey is a sad one, he still chooses to find joy even when it gets hard.
Yeah. We talked about this in the pre-interview, about how this publication was 2026, 27. You know, what they're talking about in there is still relevant today and how the things they were trying to deal with back then are very similar, if not exactly what we're still dealing with today. And I was wondering if you could speak on some of that and whether that conversation was brought up in the room and how it progressed.
It was something that I believe somebody on the cast had initiated, and then the director piggybacked on it. But I'll talk about Wallace's essay that is in the show. His essay is called Cordelia the Crude, and because the publication is out and its existence, I was really fond of reading Cordelia the Crude once I understood it because Wallace found a way to humanize sex work. Like it involves prostitution without giving too much of what we do in the show away. But what I noticed and like what I had poised as a discussion point was that he does a really good job at explaining to people that like we get things from sex. Like sometimes it's power, sometimes it's like some intangible thing that we get when we have sexual encounters. And not only was somebody smart enough to figure out how to monetize that, but also that person necessarily wasn't even looking to monetize. They was just exploring their sexuality, and he made space for that to be okay. And because that was externally put on Cordelia, the piece is called Cordelia the Crude, she then figured out how to turn that into income given her circumstances. And I find that very similar to how people operate in today's world with sex work and what the views are on that. Like there's still so much taboo around it. And regardless of how people may feel about it, it's a very legitimate way that people earn their money, especially in times like these. I find myself quoting the show now that I'm in interviews with you. The line was, in times like these are difficult and necessary. And when you do come to see the show, I'm excited for you to catch it in one of the scenes that I'm in. But yeah, like we talk about prostitution. We also bring up homosexuality in the play and bisexuality. And the cast is Black. Everyone in the play is Black. And there's already a very prevalent thing about being Black and being gay. Like another conversation that's come up in the room, we will allow Black people, Black men in particular, to be serial killers, shooters, pedophiles, everything under the sun. But for some reason, we draw the line at homosexuality. There's actually an essay that I'm in. It's one of the few essays that Wallace is in the play, and it'll make more sense as you see the play. He's in this essay that really touches on what we are learning about today, or what we could still do some more work on learning about today, is that one can love two at the same time. Like people do it all the time. They have a mom and a dad. If you are blessed to have your mom and your dad in your life and blessed to have good relationships with your mom and your dad, like people love two people at the same time quite a bit. So yeah, despite it being written in 1926, we're still talking about very real things that are happening today. And another thing that just came up, this project was funded by the NEA before the NEA pulled its grant for the project. And I can't reveal why that's really important right now, because that'd be giving away plot. But there is a scene in Act 2 that'll make that make more sense. It's the first, not the first scene. It's about 3 scenes into Act 2 that will help that make more sense as to how this theater still found a way to put on this project despite not receiving funding, given the contents of the project. Yeah. Oh, this is hard, talking about the play without giving away the play.
Yes. But I love it though. I think all of it is like, it's enough to say, I'm curious. Like, I'm so interested. I'm so ready to be in the theater and experience this. I always hope that these conversations are really just teasers. It's just like, you're just giving us tidbits and like, oh, I got to get in there. I gotta see this.
And
I'm going to pay attention.
It is really something to see, because another conversation that we brought up was, is this a musical? And having studied musical theater,
Yeah.
I can comfortably tell you that the great American musical still comes from vaudeville, which came from minstrelsy. And again, another moment that'll reveal itself in our beautiful interdisciplinary piece. But we are fully singing. We definitely dance a bit in the play. There's some live music in the play. Adam Faulkner. Oh, I should know this, man.
Adam Falk.
Yes, Adam Falk. Yes. He's actually the composer on our project. I really had to get the note, because I was like, I'm not going to do my man like that.
That's okay. I had the notes.
Thank you.
We went to the same place. Totally fine.
He actually provided some original compositions for the show, and there'll be some live music played during the play. Yeah, it's a very all hands on deck project. It's a beautiful interdisciplinary piece, but it is still a play. And it's a play I'm really excited to share with people. even though
That's
tech
good.
got
So
me tired.
yeah. I can only imagine, that it takes it out of you, but it's rewarding exhaustion, I hope?
Yes, and also just Wallace. I love Wally. I love Wally so much, but Wally is exhausting. So
Yeah.
I'm just learning how to get my reps in with this man because his needs are
Do
very
you
urgent.
do you ever find yourself, when you're not at rehearsal, when you're just walking or just anywhere, sort of embodying Wallace's cadence or Wallace's swagger?
The beautiful thing about the newness of a world premiere is that I get to set the cadence. And what's been beautiful about working through rehearsals is figuring out how to break the cadence I've
Mm,
established. A lot of my time with Wallace outside the rehearsal room tends to be reading. I've been trying to get through the Black or the Berry. I just really like it. There's a section in it. I think it's three sections. The section I'm reading right now is called Harlem. It's in that time where like it's semi autobiographical, but it's not exactly autobiographical, but it's still enough to where like you read it and it's like, oh, this is tea. This some tea. But no, I do notice that like sometimes after rehearsal, I literally just need to like take a breath. So I'll go on a walk, catch up with a friend on the phone, and purposefully take my mind off of work. Because part of what ultimately led to Wallace's death was the stress, which then induced the alcoholism, which then induced tuberculosis. So, in my attempt of like figuring out how to still make this man honest, I'm like, okay, Kaisheem, playtime, rehearsal's over. You're not at work no more. It's cool. Like,
yeah.
you can let that man go.
Give yourself some space. Absolutely.
Yes, give myself some space, and I need it. And I'm getting better at that.
That's great. I know it's a tough lesson for everyone, especially, I think it's safe to say people of color feel like we're always on a grind of some sort. We're always trying to convince people of our brilliance. It is a full-time job.
Yeah, it is. Um, I think even in that, sometimes the people that we're convincing sometimes ends up being on him, and that's something else we play with in the play too. That I'm excited for people to really lean in and catch.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely on board. I already have my tickets, as a matter of fact.
No,
I will.
please do.
Yeah. Looking forward to coming. I always ask everyone, what do you hope an audience takes away from this experience?
I'm gonna answer in two parts. At least the first part, the director's goal and my goal is the director's goal is to get you to buy a copy of the magazine. Like that is literally the catalyst of this adaptation. I see Quintessence moving in a direction where they're looking to expand the idea of what classical theater is in a way that still honors the classic part, but still invents new things. So, on top of being engrossed in the beloved Shakespeare and the beloved older plays, we then take classical pieces of literature and then turn them into plays. I think that's really, really, really cool. Me personally, I hope that people walk away understanding that despite adversity and circumstance, that you really can't run away from who you are. It will come and get you. And the sooner you summon the courage, because it's not easy, it's very fearful, deeply terrifying. But the sooner you summon the courage to actually face that person in the mirror, the easier it will then become to make peace with them. And that's something I think had Wallace adopted, he would have at least seen life into cross paths with people like James Baldwin and then eventually Andre DeShields and people of the like. I definitely think Wallace was a man we lost a bit too soon. And I want them to be reminded that there are consequences to your actions when you do try to omit parts of yourself because they come to light.
Yeah. I mean, there's too many examples, especially in queer stories, about how repressed you may have been when you were in the closet or unclear of who you were, and as you started to become who you were, you started to blossom and you become more present, and people see you more because you're no longer hiding and cowering. You're no longer a wallflower. You're like the center of attention. Like when you have a sense of who you are, you can't wait to share that with people. it is something worth thinking about. If you don't believe that you have something to offer, perhaps that is your opportunity to find that and believe that in yourself.
That you have, I'm paraphrasing, if you don't
Mhm.
believe that you have the opportunity to, that you have something to offer,
There's your opportunity.
yeah, there's your opportunity. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I know I take a lot of walks on my own and really just think about things. And I think if I didn't allow myself that time, that space, then I wouldn't be who I am today. And yeah, so anyone I talk to who's struggling, I always speak to the value of just having space and really just taking the time. It's like everywhere you think you need to be, you don't have to be. You just got to be with yourself and make sense of who you are, where you are, and where you want to go.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see where this play goes. Even through previews, I can tell that this is something that may shift as we
Mm.
start to get eyes on it. And we have, I want to say, 12 previews before we open. So yeah, that's a long time to. No, I'm a liar. 7 previews, but still, that's a long time to watch something change and morph and grow. So yeah, I'm really excited.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited too, and I hope our listeners have been engaged by this conversation. And you know me, you should already have tickets now. You should have bought them halfway through this conversation. And if you didn't, now's your time. Go ahead, you can do it now.
Because I was just at the box office and they were like, "Hey, make sure you put your comps in because the run is selling."
The run is selling.
And I know for a fact that we won't be able to extend just given the theater
Mm,
schedule. The next
yeah.
show will be coming in. So yeah, this is not one to miss.
Yeah. Don't delay. Kaisheem, this was a great chat. I really enjoyed talking to you and digging into this piece, and I can't wait to sit in that theater and experience this play within a play tease. and and then
It makes
to
sense,
get
I promise.
yeah, and then to get a tangible copy of this magazine. If our listeners are as engaged as I am and want to find a way to continue to engage with you, how can they keep in touch with you and the things that you'll be doing here and beyond?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, I am on the social media. My handle on Instagram and TikTok is at Kaisheem Fowler-Bryant. If you want nice and cute, you will follow me on Instagram. If you want real and uncovered, you will follow me on TikTok. I also run a motivational platform called Whiteboard Sermons at Whiteboard Sermons. And they're just daily affirmations that I give to myself because I learned quickly about a year or so ago that I need to hear myself affirm myself because that just wasn't something I got that much of as a child,
Mm,
which believe it or not, I don't think so, that's something Wallace got a lot as a kid either, which is why he was so big on writing and just figuring out how to express himself. But
wow.
yeah, that's me on the internet.
All right. We'll have that in the show notes if you want to find and connect with Kaisheem. The production is Fire by Wallace Thurman. It is a world premiere written and adapted by Marilyn Campbell and Paul Oakley Stovall. It is directed by Rael Myrick Hodges and is on stage at Quintessence Theater Group through November 2nd. That's to get
Hmm.
your tickets, and that's tickets in plural because what do I always say? Theater is more fun with a plus one. And
Yes, and
Kaisheem,
this is you're gonna want to bring a friend.
absolutely. Bring a friend and unpack it together. Kaisheem Fowler-Bryant, thank you
Hmm.
so much for taking the time to chat with me. It was truly a pleasure.
Thank you so much.